you've all been waiting for. They want it, you want it, we want it, and now we're here. As we can see, I was mentioning to Cruz, the Commission on Presidential Debates has instituted the plexiglass right there. And in a perfect shot, the moderator is sitting right in between the barely visible plexiglass panels. Exciting background noise that is being picked up, much like uh, the background that picked up Mark Meadows mentioning how Trump vitals had dropped significantly off the record. And the namesake of this podcast has left us. Although I guess I am part of the Big Brown Army too, but well, we're all part of the Big Brown Army. Never mind. Forget I said that.
Good evening. From the University of Utah in Salt Lake City,
Hi, good evening.
to the first and only vice presidential debate of 2020, sponsored by the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm Susan Page of USA Today. It is my honor to moderate this debate, an important part of our democracy.
Sorry about that.
In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience.
Ray,
and we've
I just
taken
sent you
extra
the.
precautions
Here, look in
during
the
this
comments.
pandemic. Among other things,
In the
everyone in the
private chat.
audience is required to wear a face mask, and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart. The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
You're witnessing some exciting action here tonight. This is one of two times that the audience will be allowed to express enthusiasm tonight.
There will be no enthusiasm after this.
No, none whatsoever until the end. Pence is looking more and more sunken in these days. I feel like he naturally has a sunken
Senator
in
Harris
quality
and
about
Vice
his
President
face.
Pence, thank you for being here. We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus. The two campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching. One note, no one in either campaign or at the Commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask. This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each. I'll begin a segment by posing a
Ray,
question
real quick,
to each
what's
of
your
you.
prediction?
Sometimes the same question, sometimes
who
a different
wins?
question on the
Yeah.
same topic. You
I think Pence is going to get hammered tonight. I don't know if he's going to lose the debate. He's going to get hammered over COVID, though.
I think
will
that's fair.
discuss the issue.
Hold on a second.
At that point,
I'm going
although
to leave
there
you
will
again.
always
My
be more
mom's
to
calling.
say, we'll move on to the next topic. We want a debate that is lively, but Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are
Shout out Chris
tumultuous
Wallace.
times, but we can and will have a respectful exchange about the big issues facing our nation. Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our country so much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000
Going right
dead
after
people
it.
in our country in just the last several months. over 7 million people who contracted.
Pence is no chump.
1 in 5 businesses.
I know.
He's actually
closed.
really good at
We're
debating.
looking at
So I'm
It's
curious
that-
how
frontline
this turns
workers
out.
who have been
It's that
treated
talk
like
radio
sacrificial
experience he
workers.
has.
We are
Right.
looking at over 30
And
million
also his
people
vast experience with
who in the last
G.I.
several
Joe.
months had to file for unemployment. And here's the
G.I.
thing.
Joe?
On January 28th,
No, wrong
the
reference.
vice president
Sorry.
and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew
she's slipping
what
up a
was
bit.
happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine,
She
and
sounds like she's
making
about to
sure that it will
cry.
be free for all.
I mean,
That is
that's
the plan that
knowing
Joe Biden
Kamala
has
Harris.
and
That's
that I have,
usually how
knowing
she
that we have to get a
does
hold of what
this.
has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited
Thank you, Senator
their right to
Harris.
reelection based on this.
Thank you, Senator.
It's pretty good.
Harris.
Pretty good opening.
Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have
That's
died
that
of
prosecutor
COVID-19
style.
since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you.
Wow, grown up to me.
And our nation's gone through a very
Feels
challenging
nice.
time
I feel
this
so
year.
good inside.
Yeah.
But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before, there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China. President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since
Ray,
World War
literally
II.
no one is watching this one.
And I believe it saved hundreds
okay.
of thousands of Americans.
Yeah, I mean, we're just
Because
kind
with
of
that
recording.
time, we were
We'll
able to
do
reinvent
our
testing.
usual
More than
podcast right
150
after this
million
so that
tests
we
have been
can
done
chat about
today.
our reaction to
We
it.
were able
And
to
we'll
see to the delivery
post that.
of
But it's fun to
billions
watch
of
this
supplies
together,
so
though.
our
with
doctors
you.
and nurses had the resources support they needed.
I'm going to
And
post
we
it right now.
began really before
Oh.
the month of February was out to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics and been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe we'll have literally tens of millions of doses of vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot
Kamala's
like what
facial
President Trump and I and
expression
our task force have
might
been doing
be
every step of the
really,
way.
great
quite
for
frankly,
her supporters and
When I
Biden
look at their
supporters.
plan that talks
but
about advancing testing,
Her
creating
little
PPE,
ticks are going
developing
to
a vaccine,
really frustrate those on the
it looks
fence.
a little bit like plagiarism.
I told you,
which is something Joe Biden knows
she
a little bit
talks that
about.
way too.
I think the American
It's-
people
I don't-
know
Yeah,
I'm off.
yeah.
this is a president
When
who
she
has
does
put
this is not
America first,
at
and the American
all.
people, I believe with
This
my
seems
heart,
so fake.
can be
Thank you,
proud
Vice
of the
President Pence.
sacrifices they have made. It's saved
Thank you,
countless
Vice President
American
Pence.
lives.
Senator Harris, would you
Oh.
like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss. And the vice president is the head of the task force. and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
So
about,
but Susan, this is important.
Susan, I
I
have
want
to
to add,
weigh
but
in
if,
here.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh in.
speaking.
yeah, you can
So
have
I
15 more
wanna-
seconds, and then we'll give the vice president
Thank
a
you.
chance to
So I
respond.
want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm
Thank
were
you.
you
Thank
when
you.
your
That
children
point could have been
couldn't see your
made
parents
way
because you were
more
afraid they could kill them?
strongly.
Let's give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to
You know,
respond.
there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to
reality,
president.
if I may finish, Senator, the reality is Dr. Fauci said everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. But that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us,
President
if we did
Pence.
everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice
Now,
President
one
Pence,
life lost is too
Thank you.
many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their
You just
family
deflected
and their
that
neighbors
onto
first,
people.
our doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice
Yeah,
President
I
Pence,
mean,
you
that's
were in
a
the
very
front
ingenious
row
way to
in
do
a
it.
Rose Garden event 11 days ago, what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior
If you guys are
administration
watching
and
this
congressional officials.
and you're
No
not
social
able
distancing.
to
Few masks,
hear it,
and
please
now
let
a
me know.
cluster
It
of
should
coronavirus
be
cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. And President Trump and I have
it's
great
kind of
confidence
ingenious
in the American
to for
people
him
and-
to
and their
keep
ability
deflecting
to take that information
and put the focus on the American
put it into
people
practice.
and
in the height of the
the
epidemic,
optimism.
when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day. We surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy
Wow,
Coney
Kamala
Thank you.
needs to
Thank
take
you,
it
Vice
down a
President.
notch.
if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that
She
event
looks so
Susan,
young
actually were
tonight.
tested
It's
for
great. Like,
coronavirus,
she doesn't
and it was an
usually look
outdoor
like this.
event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates.
I don't
with
know
the
if it's because I saw
coronavirus, but
Trump
a
couple
government
weeks ago.
takeover of health
Thank
care,
you. Thank you,
a
Vice
Green
President.
New Deal,
Like,
all government
maybe
control.
by
We're about
comparison,
freedom
Mike
and respect
Pence
for the
is
freedom
doing
of the
well.
American people.
Let's talk about respect.
Oh yeah, because he's normal.
You
Yeah.
respect the
He
American
sounds
people
like a
when you tell them the
president.
truth. You respect the American people when you have the
So
courage
it's
to
going to be
be
a
a
battle.
leader speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves.
I think she's
But
going to
this
try to break him.
administration stood on
Yeah.
His
information
veneer
So it's
that
kind of
if
the
you had
opposite.
as a
Yeah,
parent,
that's a very
if
good
you
point,
had
Ray.
as a worker knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration
Yeah.
that was unwilling
Right.
to speak the
She's
truth
going
to
to
the
try to draw him
American
off
people.
sides.
So let's talk about
Yeah,
caring
clearly.
about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked
No,
about
It is asking too much of the people. That they would not be equipped with the information they need
Oh,
to
yep,
help
yep.
themselves.
He's
to
getting
protect their
triggered.
parents.
I'm sorry. Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me. For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most
We
of the
suddenly
people who
lost 3
can be
viewers. I don't know
vaccinated
what we
need to
did
be
to do that, but
vaccinated. But half
sorry.
of Americans now say they
Uh-oh.
wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
This is a big deal.
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely.
Good answer.
But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions from this pandemic. In
Wait, is
recent
she not
days, the
gonna
president's
ask
diagnosis
both
of
candidates?
COVID-19 has underscored the
Yeah, it's a little odd
importance
that there's no
of the job
back
that
and
you
forth.
hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well,
This
Susan,
question
thank
would have
you,
been
although
relevant
I would like to go back.
like
I
2 days
think we
ago.
need to move on
Well,
to the
thank
issue
you,
of
but I would like to
vice
go back
presidency.
because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We
Moderator
have
just
5
got
companies in
thrown by the
phase
wayside.
3 clinical trials.
I mean,
And we're right now
the
producing
format
millions of
is
doses.
not a good format right
I know.
now because,
The fact that you continue to
and I don't know if this is
undermine
how it's
public
been in the past. I
confidence in
can't
the
remember
vaccine,
the
if
previous
the
debates,
vaccine
so I don't
emerges
know if
during
this
the
is how it
Trump
was.
administration, I
Oh, you're
think
saying
is unconscionable.
you last
Senator,
time?
I just ask you,
Say it again, Ray.
stop playing politics with people's lives.
You're saying Tim Kaine
good.
didn't
The
move the needle
reality
for you last
is
time?
that we will have vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is just, it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, you know, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe
Interesting
Biden was
that
Vice
Pence has
President
not
of the
answered the
United
question.
States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu. 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong. And we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty. They left an empty and hollow plan, but we
Thank you,
still
Vice
learned
President
from it.
Pence.
And I think
Vice
the
President
American
Pence, your time
people,
is
I'm going
up.
to say again, can be
Vice
proud
President Pence, I'm
of
sorry, your
what
time
we
is
have
up.
done. And Senator, please
Thank you, Vice
stop
President
undermining
Pence.
confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked
Sure.
Vice President
Oh,
Pence,
okay.
which is,
So I guess we are
have you had
following
a
that format.
conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential
She's probably not going to
disability?
answer this
And if
question
not,
either.
and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19.
Neither
Yeah.
of them answered
Fine.
the question.
25,
She's gonna run out of
at
time.
Kaiser Hospital in Oakland,
She's not going to
California.
answer the question.
And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now.
Or maybe she will. I don't know.
know
I don't think
to
so.
make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. You know, Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because, you know, I have a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first
I wish there was a
woman
giant
of
clock
color
behind
and
them.
Black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal
How does she have
organizations
this much
to big
time?
banks that were taking advantage of homeowners.
That's 2
to
minutes, right?
for-profit
Or is it
colleges
more?
that were
I feel like she's
taking
been
advantage
talking
of that.
forever already.
And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second Black woman ever
But she's
elected
doing what
to
the
United
question.
States Senate. I serve on
She's
the
not answering the question
Intelligence
directly.
Committee, where I've been in
But the intent
regular
of the
receipt
question
of
is,
classified
are you
information about
qualified to take
threats
over?
to our nation.
She's doing a
hotspots
narrative
around
form,
the
which
world.
is
I've
more
traveled the
impactful,
world.
right?
I've met
Yeah,
with our
but I mean, she's
soldiers
still not
in our-
directly answering the
in
question.
war zones. And I think Joe
I'm
has asked
pretty
me to serve
sure
with him because he knows that we share
Yeah, I
we
mean,
share a purpose, which is about lifting up the
clearly
American
she's not
people.
answering the question,
And after
though.
the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our
But this
common
is like a
values
bunny
and
question where it's like,
Thank you,
talk about
Senator
whatever
Harris.
you want
You know,
right
neither,
now, right?
neither President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions
Ray, can
about
you
his
just
health. And my
check,
question to
open up the
each
live
of
stream
you
on your
in
phone
turn
and just
is,
see if it
is this
has audio?
information
Yeah.
voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the
It
outpouring
has
of
audio.
prayers
Yeah,
and
okay.
concern for the President. And I
Not
do
sure
believe
that
it's
anybody is
emblematic
with
of
us
the
right now.
prayers and
Yeah.
the concern
One person
that
said that
ushered
they
forth
couldn't
for
hear
every
it, so
American
I was just
impacted
concerned. But
by the coronavirus. But the care the President received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is,
dang,
we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year,
I mean,
and the stakes have never been higher.
He's a
and I think
decent
the
guy,
choice
right?
has never been
Pence,
clear.
I want to give Senator
Oh, no.
Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed
I think he ran
health
out of things to say.
information about presidential candidates, and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
Absolutely. And that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent. And certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander in Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the president's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you,
Are we going to hear
or
about?
self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent. over many, many years. The one thing we
Uh,
all know about Joe, he puts it all out there.
Another question
He
that
is
has been
honest, he is
unanswered.
forthright,
But Pence actually
but
answered
Donald
this
Trump,
one.
on the other hand,
So-
has been
Thank-
about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
The American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes,
Wow.
property taxes. He's
Kamala's
created
facial
tens of
expressions,
thousands
man.
of American jobs. And the president said those
Wow.
public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures.
Do you think
the
this
American
turns off
people
like
can
those
review just as the law
that female
allows? But
demographic?
the distinction here is that
That
Joe
Trump is
Biden,
losing out on?
47 years in public service.
I wouldn't even
compared
want to
President Donald
begin
Trump,
to comment
who
on
brought
that.
all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you,
And
Vice
turned
President.
this economy around by cutting taxes, rolling back regulation,
Thank you,
unleashing
Vice
American
President.
energy,
Pence.
fighting for free and fair trade, and all of that's
Thank you,
on the
Vice
line
President
if Joe
Pence.
Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, that's a
in
good
the White House.
segue into our third
great
topic,
segue.
which is the economy. This has been another.
Why is it a great
aspect
segue? How does
of
she
life for
know?
Americans, it's been so
Oh.
affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the
It's weird how they're
unemployment
sitting
rate
at
had declined to
desks.
7.9% in
Does
September.
that usually happen
But
in
the
the
job growth had stalled, and that was before the
I
latest
believe
round of layoffs and
that's how it
furloughs
has been in the
in
past.
the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work. Nearly 11 million jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, Blacks, and women. Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you. On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that
Ray, do they
money
get a
in what
break?
we need to do around innovation.
I don't
There
know.
was
You
a
think it's
time
going to
when
be
our
like the
country
first
believed in
debate
science
where it was just
and
commercial free?
invested in research and development
I kind of
so
want a
that we
break.
were an innovation
I
leader
know.
on the
I'm really
globe.
hungry.
Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education. So, for example,
I feel
if
like
folks
she
who wanna
goes
go
over
to a
2 minutes
two-year
every time. Am
community
I
college,
wrong?
it will
I
be
know.
free.
That's what I
If you
feel
come
too,
from a
because she
family
like,
that makes less than $125,000, you'll
and
go to a
then
public
Pence gets cut
university
off
for free. And
unless he
across
doesn't
the
have
board, we'll
anything
make
else to
sure
say. He
that
just
if you
stops
have
talking.
student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks
Pence
about
is
the
doing what
economy, which
Biden
is
did
it's
all the
about
time during the
investing in
primaries.
people of our
Where he's like,
country,
"Oh,
as
I'm
opposed to
done."
passing a tax bill, which
And
had
I'm
the
out of time.
benefit of letting American corporations go
I guess that's my
offshore
time.
to do their business.
Thank you,
You're
Senator
welcome.
Harris. Vice President Pence, your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust recovery, but the latest economic report suggests that's not happening. Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. It's when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes across the board.
I would have thought
Despite what,
COVID
Senator
had
Harris
more
says,
of an
the
impact
average
on this
American
debate than
family
it
of
currently
four had
has.
$2,000 in savings.
I know.
in
I thought
taxes.
Kamala would or
And
Kamala would just
with
come
the
out with
rise
it
in wages
front and
that
center.
occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of four increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally
She's just
did no
gonna
expense to help American people and American workers through this. Joe Biden
talk
and
about how
Harris
he cut
want
off
to raise
negotiations
taxes,
now.
want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New
And,
Deal,
you know, held
which
the
you were one of the
stimulus
original
hostage.
co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs.
Biden
all
has
across
said
the
recently
world.
that he doesn't want
And
to
Joe
ban
Biden wants
fracking,
to go
right?
back to the
Yeah, he
economic
doesn't.
surrender to China.
Yeah.
That when we
Although,
took office,
the question
half
of
of
whether
our
you believe him or
international
not,
trade deficit
right?
was with China alone.
I mean, he also
Joe
said he
Biden
doesn't
wants to
want to
repeal
defund the
all of the
police, but
tariffs that
that's like
President Trump put into
a
effect to
GOP
fight for
talking
American
point
jobs and
forever.
American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot.
and I don't
Make
believe
no mistake
that
about
Joe
it,
Biden
Susan.
wants to defund the police.
The American
I just think
economy,
a
What's
lot of
like
people
American
around him.
increase their
comeback is
budgets,
on
doesn't he?
ballot.
Yeah,
And
but
four
I think a
more
lot of
years
people around
growth
him
Thank you.
and
don't want
opportunity.
that.
4 more years of President Donald Trump. 2021
Thank
is
you,
going to
Vice
be the
President
biggest
Pence.
economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
That was a Trumpism.
Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not
Even
raise
when he's
taxes on
pissed,
anybody who makes less than
Pence's
$400,000
face
He's
is-
a
going to
year.
repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait,
I'm speaking.
be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family
Wow, he just took over.
$2,000
Kamala
in
needs
tax
to take
break
back.
every single year.
That is,
Senator,
that is
that's the math.
absolutely not true. That
is he
tax
only
bill-
cutting? Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then
Please.
have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay.
Oh,
Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end
that
fracking.
exchange was
He
a
has been
win
very clear
for
about that.
Pence.
Joe Biden is the one who, during the
Pence
Great
is
Recession,
he has
was
to skirt
responsible
around this because he wants
for the
to come
Recovery
nowhere
Act
close
that
to
brought
someone
America
accusing
back.
him
And
of
now the
interrupting
Trump
and
Pence
doing what
administration
Trump
wants
did. You
to
know,
take credit
he's trying to be the polar
when they
opposite.
ran,
He's
when
trying
they
to be
rode
the
the
mild-mannered guy.
coattails of Joe Biden's
Right.
success for the economy that they had at the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster. But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act, which brought health care to over 20 million Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also did is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of,
Thank you, Senator
trying to
Harris.
get rid of the Affordable
Oh,
Care
she
Act,
did cut
which
off
means
Kamala
that
Harris.
you will lose protections
Yeah.
if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
And to be
it's
fair-
We need to give Vice President.
I'd just like, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please.
That's a fair assessment.
That's fair.
If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease,
And he knows he
diabetes,
did it
breast
too,
cancer,
for that
they're
reason.
coming for you. If you love someone who has a pre-existing
nonsense.
condition,
Thank
they're
you, Senator
coming
Harris.
for you. If you are
Nonsense.
under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're
Let me
welcome.
give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster. The American people remember it well. And President Trump and I have a plan to improve health care and to
Still,
protect,
no one's
protect pre-existing
mentioned that
conditions for
plan.
Every,
It's kind of
American.
funny
But
You can't be 4
Senator
years
Harris,
into
you're entitled to your own
your
opinion, but
term
you're not entitled to
and
your own
say you have a
facts.
plan.
You
That
yourself
you'll be
said on
revealing
multiple occasions
next week or
that
something.
you would ban
It's like
fracking.
Nixon had that secret plan.
Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee that we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion
What?
version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation, banning fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change.
They are perfectly
Vice President
segueing
Pence,
into everything that she wants to talk about.
It's very suspicious
This
to
year
me
we've
that they
seen
perfectly segue
record-setting
into everything.
hurricanes in the south. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the
I don't think
West.
it's
Do you believe, as the scientific
Are we going to
community
hear
has
about
concluded,
Sharpie Gate
that
tonight?
man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger,
Kamala is in
hotter,
the mood to
and
bring
more
it up.
deadly, and have made hurricanes
Gate?
wetter,
Yeah.
slower, and more
I wish there was a
damaging.
picture
You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. Well, first, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates,
I wish I had
our-
Kamala's facial
our air
reaction
and
to
land
that
are
quote.
cleaner than any time ever recorded. Our water is among the cleanest in the world. And just a little while ago, the president signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years.
Pence seems like
So
the
President
generic
Trump has made a
actor who
commitment to
plays the
conservation
president of the
and
United
environment.
States in
Now, with regard to
every
climate change,
single
He
Climate
does.
is changing.
invasion
Like out of
or
a 24
disaster
episode.
movie.
Is,
Yeah.
what's the cause and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science.
Hey,
Now,
one
Joe
person
Biden
watching us,
And
please
Kamala
comment.
Harris
Let
will
us
put
know who
back
you
in
are.
the Paris Climate
Thank you for
Accord.
the
They
view.
imposed the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs.
If you
of
want, I can
American
send you a link so you
families
can
in their
be on here
homes,
with us.
and literally
and
would
watch it with
crush
us.
American jobs. And
a
President
watch
Trump
party.
and I believe that
Do it.
the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market.
I'm always
economy.
confused by Pence's
You know,
hair
what's
a little bit.
remarkable is the United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord.
Thanks,
But
Abby.
We've done it through innovation.
It's my roommate. He's
Oh.
And
watching.
we've done it through natural gas.
How do you have
and
your hair
fracking,
that short and
which,
still be a
Senator,
comb
the
over?
American people
I don't
can
understand
go
how it
look
works.
at the record. I
Wait, are you talking to
know
me?
Joe Biden
Yeah, Pence.
says otherwise now,
Oh,
as you
me.
do.
Not
But
Pence,
both
not
of
me.
you
Okay.
repeatedly committed to
It's
abolishing
so
Because I
fossil
short,
fuel
yet
and
it stays in
banning
a comb over.
fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center. And even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult
you.
as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
there are
Pence.
no more hurricanes today than
Thank
there
you.
were 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists
President Pence, I'm
use
sorry, your time
hurricanes
is up.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of goods
Wildflowers
of a
or
Green New Deal.
wildfires?
And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you.
American
Did
jobs.
Did they
and
not
American
institute the
workers
mute
first.
button for
Senator
this
Harris,
debate?
as the Vice President
I
mentioned, you
think they'll
co-sponsored the
probably
Green
do
New
it
Deal in
for the
Congress.
presidential debate.
But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure.
Uninterrupted.
So first of all, I will
I'm going to use
repeat,
that
and the American people
in my
know
day-to-day life from now on.
that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. I
You just
will
lost the left.
repeat that
You just
Joe
lost the left.
Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who
Did
makes
you hear
less
that?
than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa. whose entire crops have been destroyed because of floods. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll
Tornadoes?
tell you something,
Floods?
Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate,
I-
on the committee that's responsible for the
I'm
environment.
pretty
You know, this
sure that the
administration
research on that is very
took
limited
the
that
word
connects climate
science
change
off
to
the
it.
website and then took the phrase climate change off the website. We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about saying we're going to deal with
So
it, but we're
Pence
also
is
going to
doing the
create
same
jobs.
face as her.
Donald Trump, when
Yeah.
asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was,
I think
you know,
there's
the
some-
science is telling us this. You know what
I don't
Donald
know.
Trump
Maybe
said?
there's something about
Science
the way
doesn't
we
know.
react to,
Oh, for
So
sure, there is.
Let's talk
Yeah,
about who
you know,
is
different
prepared
genders
to
doing
lead
that.
our country over the
That's
course
a
of the
very good
next
point.
4 years on what
Thanks
is
for
an
bringing it up.
existential threat to us
To
as
make me
human
look
beings.
like a jerk.
Joe is about saying we're going to
Well, I
invest
can't
that in
stand Amy
renewable energy.
Klobuchar
It's
for
going to
that
be about the
fact. I'm
creation of
like,
millions of jobs.
I
We will
cannot
achieve
listen or
net
see her.
zero emissions by 2050.
Second person
carbon neutral
watching,
by
whoever you are,
2035.
please
Joe has a
comment. Let us
plan.
know.
This
Thank you
has
for
been a lot
watching.
of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of
You
forward.
missed a
We will
lot
also
so far.
re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an
My hunger is an
existential
existential threat.
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on everyone.
Oh,
Joe
he's
Biden
not
said twice in the
He doesn't know how to
on
answer right
day
now.
one
I know.
was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Yeah, he
tax
doesn't have a
cuts
good
delivered
answer on the environment.
$2,000
Let me write
Man,
that
this
tax
down.
moderator is
the
not
average family can
really.
afford across America.
She's playing
And
fast
with regard
and
to banning
loose.
fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first.
So here,
Senate
if they're really
co-sponsor
not
of the
going to answer
Green
any
New Deal,
questions, then
while Joe
they
Biden
should just talk
denied
about whatever
Green
from
New
this
Deal.
point
So
on.
thank you for pointing out the Green New Deal is on their campaign website, and as
That's
USA
not what
Today
Susan said.
it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate.
Dang,
You
AOC
just heard
gets
the senator
so
say
much
that she's going
clout.
to resubmit America
know.
to the Paris Climate Accord. Look,
Does she deserve that much? I
American
mean, she's
people
good.
always
But does she
cherished our
deserve that much
environment. We'll
clout?
continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us
Thank
to
you, Vice President
retrofit
Pence.
4 million
Thank you, Vice
American
President
business
Pence.
buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump
Thank
is
you,
going to
Vice
put
President
America
Pence.
first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take
Is Pence
care of our
talking
environment and
slower
follow the
than
science.
normal?
Thank you,
But,
Vice
you know, on
President
the
Pence.
issue of
I
jobs,
think that's how
Senator
he
Harris.
talks. That's
the
exactly how
vice
he always
president
talks.
earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it.
That's not true.
What ended up happening is because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. Farmers have experienced bankruptcy because of it. We are in a manufacturing recession because of it. And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration. And the American people know what I'm talking about.
I mean-
you know, I think about 20-year-olds. You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old who are coming out of high school and college.
Which is
right
it,
now.
Kamala?
You're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American
Really,
renters
if no
are
one falls
worried
on their
about whether
face
they're gonna be
during
able to
tonight,
pay rent by
I
the
mean, we're
end
not
of
going to
the
see the
month.
needle move at all,
This
right?
is where the economy is in
VP
America
debates
right now,
never
and
move
it
the
is
needle.
because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
This
Thank
is
you,
probably the
Senator
strongest
Harris.
point that
Vice
Kamala
President
has
Pence,
made
let
all
me give you
night.
just 15 seconds to respond because then I want to move on to our
Well,
next.
I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it.
Ooh,
Joe
good
Biden's
line.
been a cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades. And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. And President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes,
you, Vice
rolled back
President
regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration saw 500,000
Thank you, Vice
manufacturing
President
jobs
Pence.
created.
Why aren't
And
we
that's
talking about
exactly
clean coal anymore?
see as we bring our nation through
Thank you, Vice
this
President
pandemic.
Pence.
But a
Mr.
Green New
Thank you,
Deal, your
Vice President
massive new
Pence.
mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I'd like
Susan,
to-
I just need to respond very briefly.
15
please.
seconds and
Thank
then
you.
we'll move on.
Thank you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China. We have, as our next topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural goods.
That was
It's
a perfect segue, by the way.
partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea.
And she
Thank you
And
for
in a
saying
video
that.
tonight,
That was a perfect
President
segue.
Trump again
That
blamed
really
it
was a
on the
perfect segue.
coronavirus, saying
Yeah.
China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Susan.
Ooh,
Let me,
this is a
before
big-
I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border.
He's not going to
President
talk about
Trump
China?
fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States.
And
Mexico
actually,
Canada
China would be
agreement
a
is now the law of the land.
super strong point for Pence
American
to make
people
right now.
deserve to know. Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. The American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019, more liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others in the United States Senate. So now with regard to China, Susan, first and foremost,
Why did he waste all his time on
China
that?
is to blame for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China. And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was
Thank you, Vice President
xenophobic.
Pence.
But President Trump has
Vice President
stood
Pence,
up
your
to
time is
China.
up.
We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold
Vice President
China
Pence.
accountable
Moderator.
for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris,
this
let me
is
ask you the same
Not
question that I asked
atypical
the
of a
Vice
usual
President.
debate. Like, this
How
is
would you
just how it is,
describe
right? They,
our fundamental
so-
relationship with China? Are we
I mean, so far
competitors?
it's going well. I think the
adversaries,
moderator is doing a
enemies?
decent job,
You'll
and
have 2 minutes.
partly because she doesn't have to deal with
Susan,
crazy.
the Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives.
This is
Let's
her
look
getting
at
back
the
on
job
COVID.
situation. We mentioned before, the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods.
300,000 or
because of that
300?
war that they called it. Then let's talk about standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided
Formerly
that
allied?
they
That's
hold in greater esteem
they're
and
still our
respect
allies. That's a
Xi
dumb thing to say.
Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the
So
United
Pence
States in
should
terms of
have
global
tried to
leadership
respond to that, and he
over the
didn't.
past 4
So
years.
He has nothing
And
to
of course,
say.
trying to change
I think he has a lot to
your
say.
definition.
I
We've
think
seen
he
strains
would have.
with China, of
That's an
course,
easy point
as
to
the
respond
Vice
to,
President
but
mentioned.
he
We've
missed
seen
it.
strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership
I mean,
in 2020?
Trump on foreign policy has actually been incredibly good
Joe
compared to Obama
I love
administration.
talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. You got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So Russia, I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the same. But Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO. He has walked away from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up
This is.
what might end up being a
I
significant
really hope
nuclear
Pence responds to this
arsenal.
strongly.
We were
because
in
it's
that
pretty
deal,
much
guys. We were in the
understood
Iran nuclear deal with friends, with
in the
allies
Middle
around the
East
country.
that
And because of
the Iran
Donald
deal was a
Trump's
failure.
unilateral approach to
I
foreign
really
policy,
hope Pence responds to this.
coupled with his isolationism, he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships. And the thing that has always been part of the strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. President Pence, let me give you to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did. We've stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. When President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military. And our armed forces
I have no way to
ISIS
understand that
caliphate
reference.
and took
I don't know
out
how
their
big
leader,
Pennsylvania
al-Baghdadi,
is.
without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible.
Ray, can you
for the
point to your
death
map
of
and show us where
thousands.
Pennsylvania is?
Okay. How about I do
Notably,
it
America's
backwards?
hearts there with the family of Kayla Miller, the parents of which are here with us
Somewhere
tonight in
here.
Salt Lake. Today, 2 of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Miller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi
Talk
John was killed
about
on the battlefield along with
UAE
Beetle.
and
The reality is that
Bahrain's
when Joe Biden was vice president, we had
deals.
an opportunity to save Kayla Miller. Breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office,
But yeah, maybe it
presented a
doesn't
plan.
resonate with
They
most Americans.
said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18
This
months.
is a bad
abused her
response.
mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look, we
President.
destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration.
That's what you should have spent your
$1.8
time
billion
on.
to the
Freaking
leading
A.
states
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
That's the
terrorism.
easiest,
President Donald
weakest
Trump got us
thing
out of
that
the deal.
Biden has.
And
And he
when
wasted his
Qasem
time talking about
Soleimani was
ISIS.
traveling to
Like-
Baghdad
Thank you,
to
Vice
do harm
President.
to Americans.
Kamala Harris
President
needs to just jump in
Thank you
right
very
when she
much.
says your time's up.
America is safer. Our
That would-
allies
that would be a
are
way to do
safer.
it.
And the American people know.
But then Pence would do
President
it
Donald Trump will
at the same
never
time
Thank
too.
you,
and
Vice
it would be a
President.
disaster.
take action.
I would like to give
Thank you.
Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk about.
But I would like equal time.
Yes,
Thank you.
please go ahead.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's
Um,
dumb to
what
bring that
happened
up
to
because
her
it's easy
is
to diffuse.
awful,
You just say sorry and you're done.
and it
I
should
know.
never happen. And I know Joe feels the same way. And I know
What a-
President Obama feels the same way.
God.
But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there. So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq.
Oh, here we go.
And
The bad headaches thing, right?
they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers. Donald Trump, who went to Arlington Cemetery and stood above the
I would have
graves
forcefully interrupted
of our
and rejected
fallen
that, but
heroes
Pence is Pence.
and said, what's in it for them? Because of course, he only thinks about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain, a great American hero. And Donald Trump says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war.
Trump
Take
did
this
say that, right?
He absolutely
when you
did.
want to talk about who is the
Poor
current
Pence has to
commander-in-chief
defend that statement.
and what they care about.
But he
and what
got
they don't.
captured, so he's not.
He can totally say the losers and
Warning
suckers thing is a
that
lie.
Russia had bounties on the heads
So
of American
Art
soldiers. And
JDM
you know what a
says,
bounty
Ray,
is?
thank you, Art
It's
JDM, whoever
somebody
you
puts
are.
a price on your
Oh.
head.
I don't even know if you're
and they
still
will
there.
pay it if you are killed.
Art
And
JDM.
Donald Trump had talked
Thank you,
love
about
Art
you.
six
JDM.
times to Vladimir
love you.
Putin and never brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never do that.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden would, but Joe Biden
Yeah.
would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops.
The bounty
who
thing,
are sacrificing
it's
their
already been
lives
shown
for
to
the
not
sake
be
of our
conclusive.
democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator
Pence
Harris. This
just
is such an important
freaking
issue, but we
do
have other
something.
important
It's
issues
just-
as well. And
Susan,
I
I have
want
to
to make
respond
sure
to
we
that.
have a chance
I really have to
talk about.
respond to that.
I'm
Look, she has.
15 seconds because
Well, I got to
we're
have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that. Look,
Well, I'm sorry, Vice President,
Look,
but you've
I-
had more time than
look,
she's
the-
had
the
so far.
slanders against President Donald Trump regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres
Thank
all of
you,
those who
Art
serve in our
JDM.
armed forces. And
I wish I
Yep,
knew how to use
Arthur.
Instagram.
Let
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
the
Vice
the
President
American
Pence,
people
you know,
deserve, Susan,
Vice
the
President
American
Pence,
people
I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President
that-
Pence, I did not,
the
excuse me,
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden.
Your
and Trump-
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's
I-
debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves moving from one topic to another,
I
giving
don't think
roughly.
Pence wants to go down this road.
Which is what I'm trying very hard to
Go
do.
right ahead.
So I want to go ahead and move to the next topic, which is an important one, as the last.
You
topic
wasted
was,
your time, Pence.
And that is the Supreme Court.
Although I think he's made decent points, but
On Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond.
Stop, you freaking.
The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the.
You should have taken time to freaking
of
talk about
American
that.
service members.
But does he want to
The opportunity
say
came
right now that he
to
wants to ban all abortions?
more American
I don't think he
President
really
Trump
wants to go there right now, does he?
and Qasem Soleimani.
I mean,
gone.
I'm saying
But you
all the
deserve
stuff
to know
he's
that
saying
Joe
right
Biden
now.
and Kamala Harris
Soleimani's
actually
killing
criticized
was
the
a good
decision
thing
to
for
take out
America. It
Yeah.
was an amazing thing for America, actually.
Soleimani. It's really inexplicable.
But he doesn't know how to
with regard
use his
Joe
time
Biden,
very
it's-
well.
It's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander in chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members. And that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic.
Yeah, I
about
don't
the
think he's going to
opportunity
answer the
to
question.
become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. She's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees, you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is that
up.
when the hearing takes place, that
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion? And you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
It's a
Thank
kind of an
you,
odd
Susan.
question,
First
isn't
of
it?
all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And
But
in fact, Joe,
she actually
if
did, though.
elected, will be only the
That's not-
second practicing Catholic as president of the United States.
First one
On
was
the issue
to
of
Cruz.
this nomination.
JFK.
Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before
I'm actually watching the
when
clock
this
this time.
conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year
curious.
or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's
did
right to
she
make a decision
respond
about her own
to
body.
the question?
It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and
I'm
the
not
vice
sure, but
president.
I've got a bit of breaking news to Cruz.
It also
What's that?
the court. It's the
Taylor
Affordable
Swift
Care Act.
endorses Joe Biden.
Literally
Oh.
in the midst of a public
Breaking
health
news.
pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of
Okay,
the
so
Affordable
she's
Care
at 2
Act.
minutes right
And I
now.
said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections if they win for people.
Did she have
with
2.5
pre-existing
minutes or 2
conditions.
minutes?
This
Everything's
means
2 minutes, I
that
think.
over
Does this go
20
till
million
7:30?
people will lose their
I have no
coverage.
idea. But
It means that if you're under the age of 26,
she's clearly
you can't
over
stay
2
on your
minutes right
parents'
now.
coverage anymore.
She's over.
And here's the thing. The
2.5
contrast couldn't be
minutes
more
now.
clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public
Thank you,
option
Senator.
or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator.
That's true
Harris.
leadership.
You know, you mentioned earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining
That was 2 minutes and
protections for people with
45
pre-existing
seconds.
conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says, President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he
This
would
is a very
do
good
that.
question,
that
and
was
I don't
one
know
of
that
the
Pence has a
toughest
good
nuts to
answer.
crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us
What previous
specifically,
question is
how
he
would your
going to address
administration
first before he
protect
answers
American
this for 15
citizens
seconds?
have access to affordable insurance?
Let me
if
first go
the
back.
Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Let me go back to the first question
Well,
you asked tonight.
Just say, addressing your very first question.
Oh, so good. Good job, Ray. You get you get points for that. Good job.
Such a dramatic contrast.
How did
Joe
that
Biden-
happen?
For taxpayer funding of
that's
abortion
hilarious.
all the way
That's
up
good.
to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett
Okay,
is confirmed?
This is a good question.
I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years. From
He
George
doesn't want to
Washington
talk
to
about
Barack Obama.
pre-existings, though.
Presidents
They
have
don't
Yeah,
really
I
have a
mean,
plan
29
on it.
cases.
He doesn't.
But your party actually
She should hammer him and say, why
adding
didn't you
seats
answer
to the
that
Supreme
question?
Court, which has
Right.
had 9
We'd love
seats
to
for
hear your plan.
150 years.
Like,
If you
I'll
don't
give
get
you
your
my
way, this is a
time if you
classic
tell me
case
your
of if you
plan.
can't
That
play
would
by the
be a
rules,
smart
you're
move.
going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know, if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed at the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the
No,
question.
Mr.
Yes,
Vice President, I'm
please,
speaking.
very
I'm
fast.
speaking. Okay. In 1864,
I don't like when she
one
does
of
that.
the, I think, political heroes.
I'm
certainly the
looking at
president,
Twitter,
I
and a lot of
assume
our
you
friends
also, Mr. Vice President, is
love
Abraham
it when
Lincoln.
she does that.
Oh.
Abraham
So,
Lincoln
it's interesting.
was up for re-election.
I
She's
think you're right,
sunning him.
right?
And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now, and it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you,
And the
Senator
American
Harris.
people, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Why isn't she asking him
about
the
packing.
question
Once
that
again,
he
you
didn't
gave a
answer?
non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
Trying to answer you
The
now.
American people deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election. Men and
Mr.
women,
Vice
I
President,
got to
I
tell you,
think it's-
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the
Please.
fact. Yeah, I'm about to. So the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts.
Do
courts
it,
of
Pence.
appeal. people who
Do
are
it.
purely ideological, people who have been
Do
reviewed
it, Pence.
by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President
Do it.
Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is Black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about
This is why he
packing
should have
the court?
interrupted.
Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question. So
Thank
maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question,
you,
but I think
thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Good.
Thank you, Vice President.
There you go.
In March, Breonna Taylor, a
What if he
26-year-old emergency room
coughs
technician
like
in Louisville,
3
was shot
times
and
during this
killed
debate?
after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke
Do you think
into
that'd
her
be really
apartment.
bad?
The police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said
Oh,
he
look at
didn't
that shot
really
with
do
both of
that.
their
He
reflections.
used a
That
gun
was
registered
great.
to
I
him
missed
to
it.
fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense.
Is this only 90
None of
minutes,
them
Ray?
have been indicted in connection with her death.
Let's hope to God that it is.
Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, you know, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer. And people around our country of every race, of every age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests.
Are we still
And
waiting for
I
like
believe strongly
the one
that,
distinctive
first of all,
line
we
from
are
both
never
of
gonna
them? We haven't
condone
heard
violence, but
anything
we always
super
must
impactful
fight
yet, right?
So, by
for
the way,
the values
someone
that
on
we
Twitter
hold
said this,
dear,
but
including the fight to achieve our
this is
ideals.
what
And that's why
political
Joe
life
Biden
will
and I
look
have
like
said
after
on
Donald
this
Trump.
subject. Look, and I'm a former career prosecutor.
And
I know what I'm talking about. Bad
while I'm
cops are
slightly
bad for good
bored,
cops. We need
I'm
reform.
I'm like looking
policing in
forward to
America
this
and our
future.
It feels
justice
good.
system, which is why
Yeah.
Joe and I
It feels good to
will
see two
immediately
normal
ban
people on
chokeholds and
stage, right?
carotid holds.
Yeah.
George Floyd would be alive today if we
But
did
it's
that.
interesting on Twitter,
We
the
will
hatred towards
require a
Pence is
national
strong
registry
and the hatred towards
for police
Kamala is
officers who
strong.
break the law.
Even though
We
they're,
will, on the issue of
this is a
criminal
very
justice
normal debate.
reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and
Thank
we
you.
will decriminalize marijuana, and
Thank
we
you,
will.
Senator
Oh
Harris.
man,
we will
marijuana is
expunge the
not where
records of
Kamala
those
Harris
who
wants to
have
Thank you,
go,
been
Senator
convicted
right?
of marijuana. This is
Thank
the
you,
time
Senator
for
Harris.
leadership on a
Does
tragic,
Pence know anything about
tragic
her
issue
Senator
history
Harris,
of
with
your time
unarmed
is
prosecution?
Black people in America. who
Thank
have
you,
been
Senator.
I'm sure he does.
Vice
And it's
President Pence,
coming
let
in
me pose the
3,
same question to
2,
you.
Let me
In the
first
case
address
of
the other
Breonna
question,
Taylor,
though.
Was justice done?
The second
You have 2
question you
minutes,
asked tonight.
uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life.
Do you say
The
any
family of
sin?
Breonna Taylor has our
Ooh.
sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong, but you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. Justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed.
I mean, this is
It
the
really is astonishing.
part that
Flora
a
Westbrook
lot of
is with us
Americans
here
want to
tonight in
hear.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Just a few weeks ago,
The
I
all
stood at
caps
what
law
used
and
to
order.
be,
Mhm.
her salon was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that that America is systemically racist, and that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities, is a great insult.
He should call out her
to the men
record
and women
as
who
a
serve in law
prosecutor.
enforcement. And I want
Which
everyone
He's got a
minorities
fly
have
on
spoken
top of his
against
head. Look, he has a fly on top of his head right now.
understand this.
No.
And it is remarkable that
And it's unfortunate that
when
his
Senator
hair
Tim
is
Scott tried to
snow
pass a
white.
reform bill,
And she's looking at
brought
it
together a
too.
group of Republicans and Democrats. Senator Harris,
It won't
you
leave.
got up
He
and
can't
walked
swat
out of
it
the room,
away.
and then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided
no,
new
it's still
accountability,
there.
new resources. But we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American
Thank you,
neighbors
Vice
and
President.
all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership,
Thank you,
we'll
Vice President
always
Pence.
stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done
Vice
from
President
day
Pence,
one, and
thank
that is
you. Your time
improve
is
the
up.
lives of African Americans,
Thank you, Vice
record
President Pence.
unemployment, record
Vice
investments in
President Pence, your time
education,
is
and we'll
up.
fight for school choice
Your
for
time
all
is
of
up,
our
New
Thank you,
York.
Vice
I'd like to respond.
Your time is
Senator
up.
Harris.
Please
I will not
take
sit
care
here
of
and
that
be
fly on
lectured
your
by the
head.
Vice President
It's
what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am
Kamala
the only
Harris.
one on
Kamala
this
should do
stage
this. Kamala should be like, and by the
who
way,
was personally
you have a fly.
prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to homicide.
it
I'm the
was
only
so
one
bad.
on this stage who prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans.
Oh my gosh, I
And the
can't like
reality of
unsee this
is
fly right now.
I
that
know.
we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week the president
let's
of the
see if
United
Twitter's
States
talking
took
about
a
it,
debate
'cause-
stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn
This
white
is
supremacists.
some sort of metaphor.
And
Not true.
Jordy.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by. And this is a part of a pattern of Donald Trump's. He called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. On the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully
Okay,
protesting.
Quick question.
The
If
need
you had
for
a
racial
flat land on
justice,
your head,
where a young woman was killed, and on
would
the
you
other
notice
side
it?
there were neo-Nazis
Oh, yeah.
carrying tiki torches,
Okay, so I would notice it.
shouting
It's gone.
racial epithets, anti-Semitic slurs, and Donald
Veins
Trump, when
bulging.
asked about it, said there were fine people.
Why didn't
on
she
both
say
sides.
veins
This is
bulging?
who we have as the president of the
That's
United
Biden's
States. In
favorite
America,
line.
you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president who brings our country together
Senator Harris.
and,
thank you.
and recognizes the beauty in our diversity and the fact that we
Senator
all
Harris,
have
thank
so
you.
much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president
Cue
who
the I have black
respects and
friend
cherishes
and
all
am
of
not
the American
racist
people.
argument.
You talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
But I really need to make this point. When you were
This is where the moderator should say,
in
like,
San Francisco, when
I know you
left
need to,
office,
but
African
you don't
Americans
have
were
to.
19
You don't have the
times
Can
time.
be
more
like,
likely to be
you can
prosecuted for
finish that
minor
question
drug
when I
offenses
answer the
than
next.
whites and Hispanics.
Ah.
When you were Attorney
Thank you.
General of California,
Thank you,
you
Vice President.
increased
You can answer that when I
the
ask you the next question.
disproportionate incarceration of
Thank you.
blacks in California.
Yeah.
You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger
Thank
to
you.
pass the First Step Back on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record
Thank
speaks
you,
for
Vice
itself.
President
President
Pence.
Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice
We
President
fought for
Pence.
educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our
Thank you,
minorities.
sir.
and we'll do it for 4 more
Thank you.
years.
You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election
But
itself.
Susan, he attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of
I
time.
appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only,
Thank you, Senator.
I would
Harris.
like to
Was
go
there a
through.
dog?
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk
Maybe
about
it
the
was a
election
service
itself
dog.
before we have to
But I
conclude our
want to talk
debate.
about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the
Arthur,
first
you obviously pretend like
statewide
nothing's
officer to
happening, which is
institute a
why Kamala
requirement
should have
that
pointed it
my
out.
agents would wear body cameras.
It was
and keep
such
them on
an
full
easy.
time. We were the
Arthur,
first
thank you
to
for joining us.
initiate
It
a
would have been
requirement
such
that there would
an
be a training for law
easy
enforcement
thing
on
to comment
implicit
on
bias
and get some
because,
good
yes,
laughs
Joe
and a
Biden and
viral
I
moment.
recognize that implicit bias does
That would have
exist,
been
Mr. Vice
all
President,
over Twitter.
contrary to what you may
Excuse me, you have a
believe.
gigantic
We
fly
did
on
the
top
work
of your.
of instituting reforms that were about investing in re-entry.
I want to refer back to
This
the
is
first
work
question.
that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you,
The fly really is
Joe and
unfortunate,
I
right?
are, I think, particularly
I mean, it's a good
proud
joke,
of
but
the coalition.
I think
that we've
Kamala
built around our
missed.
campaign.
Maybe Kamala
We
didn't
probably
see
have
it.
one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the
There
support
we
of
go.
Democrats, but also
That was low-hanging
independents and
fruit, by the
Republicans.
way.
In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich,
Lincoln Project.
over 500
Those names
generals,
are like
retired generals, and
anathema
former national security
to
experts
the
and
Trump base.
advisors are supporting
Are
our
they
ticket.
all caps
And I
rhino?
believe they are doing that because
Yes,
they know
very much so.
that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power. And if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in
Was
front
it
of
last
70
week?
million people,
Am I crazy?
he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger.
Arthur with a great question.
When you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstance should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent.
I mean, there's no
Joe
other
Biden
way
and
for him
Kamala
to
Harris
answer
from
that other
changing
than
the
to
rules,
say
creating this
Trump is
universal
not
mail-in
fighting in the
voting.
courthouse every
We have a
day right
massive
now.
opportunity
He
for voter
is
fraud.
unable
We
to.
have a free and fair election.
Did he say-
did he say
I have confidence
courthouse?
in it,
Yeah,
and I believe
fighting in
all
the
my heart that
courthouses.
President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote.
Oh man, I
Quote,
feel bad for her. QAnon's going to come
when I
after her
watch the
family.
news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along? And then she added, your examples could make all the difference to bring us together, end quote. So
That's not a
each of you
question,
in turn, I'd like
sweetheart.
you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you
Get
have-
out of here with that.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question.
There's no question there.
And
First, I'd like to
let me
address
just
the
commend
previous
you,
question.
in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. But I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They
Thank
were
you,
on
Arthur.
Thank you,
polar
Arthur.
opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the 2 of them and their families were the very closest of friends.
Talk about the
And
horseback
here in
riding
America,
picture.
we can disagree.
Is
We
there-
can
I
debate vigorously,
may have
as
missed
Senator
this.
Harris and I have
Scalia and Ruth
on this
Bader
stage
Ginsburg
tonight.
on horseback
But
together.
when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument, but we always come together and are always there for one another
Thank you.
in
Vice
times of
President.
need. And we've especially learned
Sorry, it
that
was on
through
elephant
the
back, not
difficulties
horseback.
of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is
Do you
that
think she's
perspective on who we are and who we should
really
be,
spending a lot of time on
that is a sign of leadership and a
smiling,
all aspire
like,
to be. And that, you know,
while
that
she's
doesn't
answering
Joe.
to not
Joe
not
Biden,
appear harsh?
one of the reasons that Joe decided to
She
run
was like that in
for
the
president is after
in
Charlottesville.
the
that we
primary
talked about
debates
earlier.
too.
It so troubled him and upset him like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years,
She doesn't seem
what
as
Brecklin
lax
described has
as
been
she did
happening.
in some of those
Joe
primary
has a
debates. That
long-standing
really turned me
reputation of
off,
working
the
across
way
the
she
aisle
talked.
and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You mean you have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our
Nice,
country
nice,
and what
Arthur.
its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality.
I don't have a headache.
And most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First Lady, and everyone who is battling COVID-19. The second presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us then. Good evening.
And now,
Okay, let's see
your
how they.
second opportunity at enthusiasm.
Now, Kamala, is she going to put the mask on?
Wait, so
Why isn't
I
Karen
thought-
wearing?
Yeah, why isn't she wearing the mask?
I think she took it off when she came on stage. Maybe.
It looks like everybody on Pence's side is wearing a mask. Oh, I like that air handshake. It was like Demolition Man. It's nice to see some civility for a change.
Seriously, man.
I mean, look at this. Like 2016, right? You saw the first time that candidates didn't shake hands on stage, Hillary and Trump.
Yeah.
These people can't even get within 6 feet of each other, and they're still trying to shake each other's hand.
That's a very good point, Ray. Wow. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
This is very nice. This is promising for our country and this process in general.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, whoever you are. And
Shout
if you're
out
watching
Arthur.
after the live stream, yeah, thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Happy,
Cruz,
for
Arthur
watching.
is a huge WWE fan, or used
Is
to
that
be.
right?
I think he got fed up with some of the creative decisions.
Yeah, I mean that's same here. I actually was watching Hogan Rock from WrestleMania 18 today.
Oh, one of the greatest matches of all time.
Yeah, because I just wanted to see the pop again.
Can you believe that wasn't the main event of that WrestleMania?
Yeah. Arthur, if you want to
Good.
Arthur, if you want to join us to talk about wrestling, I can totally do that for 20 minutes.
Yes, let's do a wrestling podcast anytime.
If you're down, Arthur, yeah, let's do it.
Let me know. Seriously. We got to do a reaction pod, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Let me.
It's gonna be a quickie. There's not 1,000 things to talk about with this one, you know.
Yeah. So here's the question. Should we regroup at like later, like at 9 or something, and just do a half hour? Knock it out.
Let's just do an instant right now. Let's just switch over.
Okay.
Switch over.
Right. Let's just
send
do
it over and just go.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be. It'd be under 30 minutes. I mean, it's pretty straightforward here. So.
Yep. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, everyone. if you're watching this afterwards, thank you for watching.
Got instant reaction. It'll be up probably tonight, right?
Yeah, it'll be up tonight.
Big Brown Army podcast. Check it out.
Thanks, Arthur. All right.
Me too.
See you later, guys.